For as good as this team was last year, Mike Norvell, it appears it's been substantiated, was pursued by Alabama. At least they inquired about him. He was a hot commodity, of course. And maybe he's not a great coach. Maybe he's not quite as good as some people thought he was. But we also know, let's balance it out. He's nowhere near as bad as some people think he is this year. The truth lies somewhere in between. I still tend to think that truth lies closer to the high end. And I got to think, and you give me your perspective on this, that if he would just stand pat, and if he was satisfied, well, he's of course not satisfied, but if he still believed in everyone on staff, that it still may not be his call to come back with everyone, that there have to be changes made, that just for the appearance, if nothing else, to fix problems. That's the number one. That's the most important part of this. But number two, just to show that we know that this is completely unacceptable and some heads have to roll, and it's not going to be Mike Norvell's. We've seen coaches in the past, Jim Harbaugh, Brian Kelly, about as high up the ranks as you can get, basically forced to make coaching staff changes.
That's where we're at, but I think we're to the point now. I think everybody kind of understands it. Mike Norvell made the comment of like, yeah, we've got a plan. I think is the most he said. As soon as the end of the season gets here, we've got a plan going forward. Again, you've got all three of your receivers decommit, and it's not like you're burning up the trail. There's a few that it's everybody I've talked to, anybody close to the program, like, yeah, there's going to be a change made there. The big rumor, the top guy on the board, everybody wants Marion from UNLV, or not UNLV. Let me say it wrong. The Go-Go offense, yes, UNLV, is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, get that guy over here, possibly bring him in as what people want. I don't know if Mike goes this far, but people want him to come in and take over play calling to allow Mike Norvell to be more of a CEO type. But at the very least, you get him over there. But then the problem you run into with Alex Atkins having 4 offensive line commitments committed, like people want him gone. People want his head. Like I do think Mike will fight to maybe keep him, but maybe in a lesser role or as the run game coordinator. Marion comes in, offensive coordinator / pass coordinator. Something there. But I've said it several times before. I think 4 or 5 changes at least have to happen in the staff. I didn't think Adam Fuller would go. I thought Adam Fuller would be safe and they'd be able to, keep Surtain, keep Papucci's in some degree, maybe not necessarily as DN's coach, maybe move him just to special teams coach and maybe kind of can help with the D-line, get another D-line coach in there. But, with some of the issues and stuff, it's hard to say. That's going to be what's going to be, are they going to go all the way? Or are they going to drop a defensive coordinator and bring somebody in just for the pure fact of we need to get a guy in here, a D coordinator who can recruit at the next level out of high school and the portal. So, yeah, I would put that on the table. But I don't think you see him do a complete overhaul. But there are several changes that have to be made. But, yeah, put me in the camp of here's my issue with Mike Norvell calling the plays. I've admitted that the plays are there to be made. A lot of the plays that he calls are just the same as it has been since he's here. They're just not – the playmakers just aren't on the field, and the ones that aren't making the plays. I'm not saying Mike Norvell can't call the plays, isn't brilliant at calling the plays. But here's what I'm saying. And he made the comment when people were asking him about this the other day. Well, he says, well, I just want to help the team the best I can, and I feel like, at this point and until it don't, that me calling the plays does that and helps the team. Well, maybe so. But what it does is it limits who you can go hire. Because the pool of guys who are at the level of offensive coordinator at Florida State aren't wanting to come here to do that. And Jimbo had the same problem his whole career. We saw the path it took him down. You had, coordinators like I can't even remember his name, James Coley, where it's like, that's no offensive coordinator. Eventually he went to Miami. He did a few things. I'm not even sure where he's at now. He bounced around. But no, Jimbo never had a true offensive coordinator. He always had a quarterbacks coach or tight ends coach or assistant head coach type deal. That's just how he rolled. And I thought Atkins was a legit head coach candidate, could be possibly take over the play calling from Norvell one day. But I feel like maybe that promotion, when Kenny leaves, maybe that stunted his development as a recruiter and an offensive line coach. Took on too much responsibility. We're ultimately seeing the fruits of that. That's why I'm willing, if he takes a demotion or whatever, like I would be fine with that. I wouldn't be opposed to that or whatever. But yeah, if you're gonna at this point, you're gonna be able to get somebody in here that can be a truly, game changer in recruiting and all that stuff. It's got to come with that go offense or whatever the other thing is. It can't be, just to come in and run the Mike Norvell offense. So we'll see.
I watched UNLV play some of that game against Boise State the other night. I can't necessarily say that I saw enough or was paying enough close attention to be able to rate, rank, or distinguish that offense from any other offense in the country. It seemed pretty standard to me. But again,
probably their
I don't know
toughest
what the
game of the
metrics
year.
are in terms of tempo or anything else.
Yeah, that's a tough game. You go up against a team that averages like 400 yards rushing or whatever it is. Like,
yeah,
go watch some. If you watch some of the tape of earlier in the year, I promise you'll immediately notice it and appreciate it. They do all kinds of fun stuff in the run game and passing game. But yeah, I haven't watched a ton of it. I'm not as excited about it as some of my other folks are, just because I'm so hesitant, because like I've seen this so many times through the rumors before the end of the season, and then conference championship weekend happens, or not even that, rivalry weekend happens, and all of a sudden 10 people you never thought were even going to be on the list are available, and this guy was already set up over here. So it would be really nice if they could go grab Marion, go grab this or that coach on either side of the ball, and be done. But it's been messy more than, if you're going to give a knock to Mike Norvell, when he got here, he didn't get the staff he wanted. He got a lot of second and third choices along the board, and you moved on from a couple of them, but the rest of them are still here or holdovers from Jimbo Fisher's staff or the Taggart staff. So yeah, that to answer your question, it's 100% time for that clean slate, wipe out, make some changes at coordinator, because I think he can, just like Jim, just like Brian did, as to what level, but you're just not a great coach through all these levels, and even at Florida State, and just forget how to coach overnight. You were wrong. It's like with this, it's basically a salary cap, except for there was no cap on it. Call it 25 million. That's what 15 to 25 million. That's what the top teams played. And once you spent that money, once you go into the season, in this day and age, like if you miss that evaluation, if you have injuries, whatever the case may be, you're stuck with the hand you're dealt. And that's just kind of how it goes. Like, who would have thought in a million years Vanderbilt would beat Alabama this year? You look across the board, like the only undefeated team left is Pitt, and like there's no the SEC's. There's a defeat in all the SEC teams, correct?
Oregon, Pitt, Penn State, Indiana,
and Indiana. So like that's wild. If Indiana one loss, that's in the playoff. So all these 1-loss, 2-loss ACC teams are going to be looking up at Indiana, and some 3-loss SEC teams, because everybody in the SEC is going to have 2 losses at the end of the year. It's like it's a different time. It's crazy that FSU has to be the team that's on one extreme of it, like the worst case of all of them. We are definitely on the extreme side, the numbers, but teams all over the place have just completely changed from their mindset and what you see on the field from year over year. Texas A&M, all these different teams, SMU, like look at all the trouble UCF had moving into the Big 12, which is half G5 teams. What SMU has done in the ACC, as good as it is for SMU, it's terrible for the ACC, especially with FSU being down. Like, here's something we talked about in the offseason. The Power 2, is it a Power 3? Is it a Power 4? How many views and this and that with the Big 12? Is the Big 12 really, is it better than the ACC? Is it? Man, that gap between the Big 10 and ACC, or Big 10, SEC, and the rest is huge now. And even, honestly, play on the field, I don't know if there's a giant chasm between the Big 12 and the ACC, but perception-wise in the rankings, There dang sure is. And even within the ACC, if you're not a name, if you're Pitt, I don't know. I haven't sat down and looked at Pitt's schedule, but I can tell you it can't be no easier than Miami's. And it's like, so it's just crazy. They're
That's true. That's
how does
true.
Pitt get in? They go undefeated. If they lose in the championship game, they got no hope. So it's like, wow.